everyone, very good evening. You're watching The Money Show on ET now. I'm Mubina Kapasi. Here's what we have lined up on the show. It's a retirement special, if you could call it that. We are going to be talking to PGIM India Mutual Fund on their latest report when it comes to retirement, and the numbers are pretty scary. It looks like most of India is not prepared for retirement. The figures that they believe they will need for retirement are definitely not sufficient because they are not counting for inflation. So we will be talking to the CEO of PGIM India Mutual Fund on the findings of their latest Retirement Readiness Survey of 2020. He's the CEO of PGIM India Mutual Fund. Later on the show, if you as well do count yourself as the majority of the Indians who are not prepared for retirement, well, fret not, we'll be bringing on board Pankaj Mathpal of Optima Money Managers to talk about how you as well can prep yourself for retirement planning too. And later on the show, in our Spend with TMS segment, we will be bringing on board Sankalp Agarwal of Travel Triangle and decoding which are the countries that one can travel to. Should you be prepping for your Diwali and Christmas vacations from now on, or should you wait till the last minute given all the travel uncertainties? Like I said, lots lined up on today's episode of The Money Show. But guess what? 89% of the Indians today feel unprepared for retirement, and 51% have absolutely no retirement plan. Further, those who actually even do have a retirement plan believe only 50 lakh rupees today will be enough for retirement, which will be 20-30 years ago. After inflation, this number dwindles down to just 12 to 13 lakh rupees, which is definitely not going to be enough, which proves that only 1 in 5 Indians, barely 1 in 5 Indians actually do consider inflation when considering how much they will need for retirement. Pretty scary numbers, really, especially when we do consider Indians to be more, having the proclivity to spend, save more, and spend later. We do have a bit of a more traditional mindset, the one where we hold on to our buck, we don't recklessly spend. But now, of course, you do have this Retirement Readiness Survey by PGIM India Mutual Fund. So let's dissect the findings of this report. We have with us Ajit Menon. He's the CEO of PGIM India Mutual Fund. Mr. Menon, thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now. It's always a pleasure having you with us. So to start with, like I said, it's quite a scary finding that you presented to us, that a majority of the Indians are not prepared for retirement. And the fact is that India is relatively a young country. We have a majority of our population that's under 40, under 30, and you're going to have this entire cohort that in the next 20 to 30 years is going to be on the brink of retirement. What problems do you envisage this sort of unpreparedness will engender?
You're right. It is something to be anxious about and concerned about. Well, let me start by saying that probably all of us realize that two of the most fundamental things that any adult should have control on is an understanding of health and wealth. And both of these things are unfortunately not taught in schools. So, we become adults and then we sort of stumble with our friends and advisors to try and find out the right diet plan or the right financial plan on how we need to do. So that's a problem anyway. But you're right in saying that when we looked at our survey and we looked at the findings that we got, more than 51% of Indians were unprepared for retirement, hadn't planned for retirement at all. And I do think that a good part of it, one part of it we already know that, and we've been speaking about this in the media, in various reports, that the household savings in India has been coming down. So from about 23.6% somewhere in 2011-12 to about 17 odd percent in 2017-18. So household savings has been coming down. I do think that some part of this has to do with the fact that people want to prioritize living their life. They want to make sure that they're spending money on current comforts, on better health, on things like better health, a better standard of living. These are things that have taken priority, and retirement as an objective has got pushed into the background. But Mubina, one of the most important findings of the PGIM India Retirement Survey has been that planning for things like retirement is not age dependent, it is income dependent. And I think, therefore, that if we think about our crisis as a wage crisis, a stagnation in incomes crisis, then I think a lot more things get clearer, that people find it difficult to really put aside more surpluses for goals like retirement into the future. And for a country like India, which is young, maybe this problem is some time away from us. And I'll give you a reason why. A recent, when you look at the World Bank data, for instance, on dependency ratio for countries, India has a dependency ratio of about 49.3. And dependency ratio is essentially for people below the age of 15 and above the age of 65, that proportion of people divided by the working population in between 15 and 60 or 65. And that's 49.3. In the US, it's 53. In the Europe, it's 56. In a place like Japan, it's 68. So maybe for us, the problem is a little down the line, but it's coming. And we are a very large country, so there is a percentage of population that will age and retire, as you mentioned. And it's a concern that we all need to be prepared for.
Yeah, makes sense. Mr. Menon, let's talk now about, if you believe that this whole bit that you've mentioned about how, savings now is a bit lesser, people are spending a bit more on other expenses. Do you think that this pandemic, the lockdown perhaps has exacerbated this behavior where people are not saving or investing enough?
Very difficult to say from this survey, Mubina, because this was a survey that we commissioned in December 2019 and it completed just before the pandemic. But intuitively, one would say that, things could get exaggerated going forward. Interest rates are low as well. And there could be some acceleration to this. But it is a trend that has been there for some time already, Mubina. And I would think that, this whole thing about aspiration and dreams and living a good life, having good health and fitness, those have been trends in a young country like India, for sure. And I also think that because increasingly there is access to products and services, there is technology and digital payments, one click and you can buy what you want to buy. So, that would be one of the other factors that is probably playing into it. So I think there's a set of factors that's playing into why this is happening. And you may be right that the pandemic would probably sort of exaggerated this a little bit. I think people are concerned about the fact that, about their jobs, anxious about their jobs, anxious about their financial futures. In fact, recent data seem to suggest that people are paying down on their loans. Hopefully those savings rates have fallen. I think some aspect of people also wanting to reduce their debts has also happened during this pandemic. But a lot more to sort of think towards the future. To me, the most important factor that's coming out of the survey, Mubina, is that while people, want to plan, and among those who think about planning, it's more than 4 out of 5 people don't even think of the impact of inflation on the kind of retirement corpus that they'll require, or the impact of inflation on their expenses and that impact that it will have over the years. I think that's a concern. People have very simplistic ideas of what they'll probably need for retirement. And that's an area that maybe all of us need to work jointly in India to make sure that the young, as they go through their working life, have a good handle on.
Okay, all right. Mr. Menon, what's the average amount that people have sort of saved up, or if let's say not saved up, what do people believe they will need for retirement currently, which may be 20, 30 years down the line? What percentage of their income are they trying to save off, and in your report, you've also flagged off a direct correlation between income and retirement savings, which I suppose makes sense. But I guess what I want to also understand from you, and it's a message for our viewers that I would like to hear from you, that why retirement planning is important regardless of the income level you're at.
Okay. Let me talk about, obviously, what we've seen during the survey. One step back is that this is a very, very good representative survey that we did along with Nielsen, which is the world leader. And it has taken people across, both men and women. It is the new customer classification, AB. And we've taken household income of about 30,000 a month. And therefore, the average income of the people that we have surveyed is about 5.5 lakhs. Now, I'm saying this specifically because I think for many, probably in that top 1 or 2% of income, sometimes this seems like a different world out there. But for a large proportion of Indians, it is a challenge. And what the survey was throwing up is that most people think that they need about 7 to 9 times of their annual income as their retirement corpus. So in our study, for instance, most people seem to think who are in the average income or bracket of that 5.5 lakh rupees a year seem to think that 50 lakhs is a good amount to have for retirement. And there was no calculation of what that would mean in terms of inflation, how much that corpus will increase, none of that. So very simplistic sort of conclusions that came out of our study, Movina.
Okay. Mr. Menon, what, or rather, where do Indians tend to invest their retirement corpus? You mentioned in your previous answer about how interest rates as well have crashed quite a bit, right, in the last couple of months. So what's the most commonly used investment product? And additionally, do you think that's the right choice?
So yeah, two questions there. I think the first one, I think what our survey threw up is that amongst the 49% of people who claimed that they do have some sort of a retirement plan, a pretty large percentage of it, about 41% used insurance products, about 37% used fixed deposits. And also people who had a retirement plan did say a large percentage of them, for instance, said that they use postal savings. Very small percentage of people said that they use things like mutual funds, even though more than half of those who use mutual funds did think about retirement planning. So those are the kind of products that people have been using for retirement so far. Are they appropriate? It will be dependent on each individual situation. Clearly, there is really no thumb rules for it. But I do think personally, and I think at PGIM as a team, and PGIM globally is a big manager of retirement money and pensions. PGIM manages 79 of the top 100 pension funds money in the US, for instance. So we've seen this over and over again. And we do think that the big challenge that people face is not all the information around all of this subject that, the retirement is important and that it's difficult to do, but it's the how to. And we believe that maybe what we should be doing together, both the media as well as us in the financial services industry, is to help Indians get some of those few thumb rules right in terms of what is the kind of corpus that they would require, what is the impact of inflation on the kind of corpus that they may require in the future. So just to give you an example, if you did talk to people who are more or less experts from planning around retirement, I think one would say that you need at least 30 times your annual expense at the age of 60 as your retirement corpus. So it's a multiple of 30 times. Some people say it's 20 times, but I think, as you mentioned earlier, we don't have social security in India. It's better to be conservative. So 30 times your annual expense is a good number to think about as a corpus that you will need for retirement when you reach the age of 60. But here is the real issue, which many other people have written about in the media, which is this whole thing about not factoring in inflation when you're thinking about that corpus and thinking too simplistically on it. So to give you an example of that, and what I would probably recommend for people to think about in a very general thumb rule sense, is to use the rule of 72. A lot of financial advisors use the rule of 72, and I'll tell you how to use it. So for instance, if we think that today inflation is 7%, right? If you use the rule of 72 divided by 7, it will tell you that whatever is the amount that you are today spending, it could double in 10 years' time. 72 divided by 7, roughly. So I'm taking 10 years' time. So now let's use this. If you're a 30-year-old, you're spending, let's say, 25,000 rupees a month for the average Indian. That's about 3 lakh rupees a year that you're spending today at the age of 30. With an inflation rate of 7%, and use the rule of 72 divided by 7, so things are going to double in 10 years' time. By the time this 30-year-old is 40 years old, his 3 lakhs of annual expense is going to become 6 lakhs. By the time he's 50 years old, it's going to become 12 lakhs. By the time he's 60 years old, that becomes 24 lakhs a year. That kind of scale and that compounding is where people get stuck and have a problem with. 24 lakhs expense by the time you're at 60, if inflation holds at 7%. And if you have to have a retirement corpus that's 30 times that, that's 7.2 crores. That's a big number. But let's also understand that with things like mutual funds and SIPs, if you're reasonably disciplined in that savings, which we spoke about, then putting 9,000 rupees aside, assuming that you keep increasing it at 10% every year, you will hit that 7.2 crore corpus by the time you're 60. So what it requires, Mubina, I think, is a little bit more of an attention on this really important goal of retirement, talking to a good advisor, a trusted advisor, looking online for retirement calculators that can get you this calculation correctly. And then I think it can reduce a lot of this financial anxiety around this really important goal of retirement. I hope that, it's a long answer, but I hope that you got some good points there.
No worries at all. In fact, you answered my second question as well, which was going to be around how much is enough for retirement. So let me get to my final question. Another very interesting bit that was highlighted in the report is the pecking order. First comes security for your child, for your spouse, fitness, lifestyle, and then finally at number 8 is retirement. What do you think should be the pecking order of financial priorities for Indians? Where do you think retirement should come?
Mubina, the one thing that I have found in my experience of talking to investors and also advisors is this one simple aspect to keep in mind, very important. Retirement is the only financial goal in your life for which you do not get a loan, right? Now, whether it's your child's marriage, whether it's your child's education, which are always the top priorities, whether it is buying a home, whether it's buying a car, whether it's starting a business, whether it is going abroad, think about all of your financial goals and you can get a loan for it today. The only financial goal in life for which you don't get a loan is retirement. And that makes it the number one priority, according to me, that people should be taking in their lives, because you've got to do this yourself. You've got to save for it yourself. Yes, there are products like reverse mortgage, internationally used quite a bit, but not so popular in India as yet. People don't like to give up their homes. They'd like to give it in legacy to their children. And there are various other rules regarding that product as well. But I think just to keep this in mind, that retirement is the only financial goal for which you don't get a loan. So you better start as early as you can, saving diligently and in a disciplined manner with the help of a good, trusted advisor. And I think that's where I would put retirement as a priority that I think people should think about. And hopefully that's a good way of thinking about it.
Well, Mr. Ajit Menon, it was a pleasure having you with us today to discuss the Retirement Readiness Survey. And I hope that this serves as a warning gong of sorts as well for the other majority of the Indians who have not planned for their retirement. Mr. Ajit Menon reiterating why it's so important. And, he put it very well. You're not going to get, you'll get a loan for your home, you'll get a loan for a car, but you're not going to get a loan for retirement. So thank you, Mr. Menon, for joining us. Folks, if you would like to catch this conversation, you can do so by logging on to ET Now's YouTube page and find the Money Show playlist. Amazon Sambhav India, in partnership with Niti Aayog and powered by the Times Television Network through their Great Indian Seller series, showcases the untold stories of karigars, kiranas, women entrepreneurs, innovators, and many such Amazon sellers who are a part of the Amazon India marketplace. One such story is that of Swabhiman. Take a look.
After 10 years international experience in commodities, I wanted to come back to India. Always a thought was, what are we doing to actually improve the lives of these farmers? Swabhiman means self-respect. This is basically we're trying to represent the farmer's self-respect. We're basically into organic staples. So we're trying to bring in indigenous varieties of rice, like black rice is a high zinc variety of brown rice, indigenous varieties of pulses and grains. Along with that, we are also doing high quality dry fruits and traditional products like A2 ghee. So COVID-19 was very difficult for everyone. Same case was with us. Thankfully, that's where Amazon came in. And Amazon was open for business as soon as the first lockdown was over. Amazon not only cares about the customers, they also care about the suppliers. If you are looking into the Made in India story, Amazon is the place that can bring you all these products. I had participated in the Great Indian Seller as a customer and I got really good deals. So the Great Indian Festival, we're expecting our sales to go 5 times. We've already been growing at a rapid pace because of Amazon and the support that we have got at 40% growth each and every month. But we expect Great Indian Sale to take it a notch above. Just make sure that you are sticking to your brand promises, making sure you are advertising that on Amazon. The sales that you can get on Amazon, it can be fantastic. So Amazon probably is the best platform for your brand.
Okay, well, we are going to take a very short break, but when we return, if you've got questions on retirement planning, if that previous conversation has piqued your interest to get going when it comes to your retirement planning, stay tuned. We are going to be having Pankaj Madpal to guide you through that process and, of course, answering your questions and queries as well.